Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Code channel, and this is a preview of Unscrewed. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Code channel. Today we have a preview of Unscrewed. Thank you to Me and Hyena Games for sponsoring this video, and you can check out their Kickstarter link down below. This is a sponsored video, and this is a prototype copy in front of me, so please keep in mind just that everything is subject to change. This is an upcoming Kickstarter, but with that, this is everything about how the game is going to be played. Now, for the lore of Unscrewed, you are playing as different 90s cartoons. So you are all different cartoons, and you are all not doing well in the ratings, I believe, and you are all vying for who can outlast and be the best and the cartoon that makes it to the end in this free-for-all. So that's kind of the lore of it, but that isn't much about how the game plays. In the game, you are going to have this grid here where players are going to be interacting on this grid, slip-sliding all over, moving around, attacking other players, and trying not to fall over the edge. Now, the game is on a certain time clock where you can see this is an edge that was added around the board, and one will be added at the end of every round. So please keep in mind that, the board is going to get smaller and smaller, and if you go over the edge, you are out. So if this was placed down now, this player would be knocked off of the board and die. Now, if you do die, that's not the end of the game for you. However, if you are the last player standing and there are no players alive, then you do win the game. But if there's more than one player still in the game and you die, you are able to respawn and join the game again. So it's not the worst to die, but you definitely don't want to be doing so because you want to be the last player standing. Now, this game does use acrylic standees, so it may be a little bit difficult to see the different characters here on the board, but I do have 4 players in front of you. This is a game for 3 to 5 players because it is a battle royale where you are going to be maneuvering all around this map with the different actions that you're taking, so it wouldn't really work with 2 players, and as I said, as soon as there's only 1 player standing, then that player will win. Now, I will note that this game has multiple levels of strategy. When the game at first teaches you how to play, it has you exclude certain things from the first game so that you're able to just learn the pace of play and how the game plays. After that, you can incorporate everything that is meant to be played into the game, and there's actually 4 different map sites for you to play with, and even those borders that are moving further and further in, they're actually double-sided to add just more visual replayability to the game. But the different map tiles do have different things that you interact with, so all of the actual map tiles are very different, and there are 8 to choose from. There are also 5 different characters to choose from, so with that, I'm going to get into what the rounds look like. The first phase of the round is the Quirks, which you wouldn't play with in your first initial game. But the Quirk deck is going to add different quirks for you to play with that will add different little benefits that are sometimes good, sometimes bad, but usually not the worst and something that you can change, and they usually do provide some benefit. For example, here's an example of one that's bad. Clerical error. At the start of the aftermath, you die. At the end of the aftermath, respawn and trash this. So that is one that is definitely bad for you. However, there are ways for you to mill through your quirks and draw through different ones and get rid of them. And here's an example of one that is explosions don't affect you. So there are different bombs in the game, which I will get to, but for that, the bombs would not affect you. So that's an example of one that is a good quirk. During the quirk phase, the player with the dibs token, which is over here, which is the first player token, gets to draw 2 quirks from the deck, choose one, and discard the other. Everyone else draws the top quirk from the deck and has to choose the one that's drawn. After that, players are going to move on to the scheming phase, which is when everyone lays 3 action cards face down. The action cards are going to be what you see on these player boards here with the different question marks on it, and they're going to show different directions the player is going to use. So the other players do not know the future action cards that are being played. They're going to be played in player order, where everyone plays their first, then their second, and then their third. And during the scheming phase, everyone will plan all 3 of their cards and plant all 3 of them before that phase is over. So you do have to plan exactly what you want to try to do for your turn before knowing what anyone else is doing for their first action. After that is the execution phase, where everyone takes their turns performing their first action, then their second, and then their third. So this is where we are going to get into what the actions look like and the execution of this. But here we have our first player over here, which is Slappy, and he's going to perform his first action, which is to move north. Slappy is our character over here. And he also has a best friend token here on Freddy Friday. So when he does so, he is going to be able to move directly towards his friend an additional space. So he is going to move north 1 and then an additional 1. Now, these bombs you don't have to worry about until the aftermath phase, so the different things on the board, there are some things that will happen to you immediately, such as the effects that are on the board, which I'll get to in a little bit after we go through these actions if they aren't triggered, but things like the bombs are not triggered until the aftermath phase. Now, after Slappy's turn, it would move around to Freddy's turn, and Freddy would unveil this action, which is to move east. So we have Freddy here, and he's going to move east. Now this is really interesting because this is a slick spot. Moving on a slick spot is going to force him forward, which is going to send him to another slick spot, and that's going to send him to this pink portal. The pink portal is immediately going to send him forward to this portal, which, with the trajectory that he was moving on, I believe it would move him here with the bomb, moving the bomb onto the frog spot. Now you can see that was a whole lot for Freddy to move around. He only moved 1 east, but ended up way over here, and that will be the end of his turn. But again, things like this won't resolve until the end of the round. Now, moving on to a player that I have below me. You can't see it, but I have here Mosquito. So Mosquito is choosing to move south. So we have him here, and he is also choosing to try to use the portal. So he is going to move south, come through the portal, and come out here. Now he's very close to the edge of the board, but that was a sneaky way for him to pop out to hopefully come toward other players. Then, after that, over here, on this side of the board, we have Dr. Piddles. Now, Dr. Piddles is very unique because he wants to put his master actions into play. He has this ring that he puts out before the round starts, and he is trying to end his turn there after the aftermath has finished, and if he does so, he is able to put a master plan card into play. Now, if they have 3 of those in play, they are then able to win the game immediately. That's something really fun for this one character, that they're able to use this as a victory condition instead. It's very hard to do, so I think it's completely fair that it works for this character, but it's just a little fun thing that you can do with this character. Now, the master plan does permanently take place of an action in their scheme, and when they perform this action, they can choose to perform any action, which is the action deck that I'll describe now. You've seen some of them, but it is moving north, east, south, or west once. Or there's also improv and repeat, which we will get to in a little bit. If all 3 master plans are in your scheme, you win the game. So that is the card for him. And for this character, we are going to have them choose to use their master plan to use a improv card. So the improv cards are going to have different types of cards in this deck, but this one, here's an example of an attack card, SBD. So you all know what that means, and it's Dr. Piddles doing it, so you know he had a puppuccino. That's all I'm saying. But for this character, you can see that they have their attack area and everything that affects them. So this is going to actually be everything behind them, which is really funny. You are not having this character move at all, which is really interesting. And then it's going to hit in a straight line until it actually hits an opponent. So this is really, really strategic, where Dr. Piddles here can actually use this. Oh, he can't because there's an anvil here. I was going to say he could use it to take out the mosquito, but there's actually an anvil in his way. And with the directions that he can attack in, which is this way, and this way, this was not the best time for him to choose improv, but he will actually push this anvil once because those are counted as different thingamajigs that you are able to move. Thingamajigs are going to be any of these acrylic standees that are standees that stand up on the board. Alright, and with that, the first action for all of the players has been triggered, so I'm going to go through another round just to show you more of the actions that will happen and how they will move around the board. Here we have Slappy moving again forward 1, so he's going to move forward 1, but because he is moving towards, he's no longer moving towards Freddy Friday, so he's actually not going to move anything else, and he is going to stop there, which I'm sure has messed with his plan. Now we move on to Freddy, and Freddy is going to flip this over and improvise. Draw 1 card from the improv deck. So here's another example of something that might happen, and this is another attack card, Mess Hammer. So from where he is, he can choose where to attack, and this way would hit just Slappy, but I think that's worth it. And it would be put 1 slick, 1 black hole, and 1 bomb among the different area here. So actually, in reading this attack, you wouldn't be able to target a different thingamajig because these are all placed on empty spots, but this would be a way for you to place out a bomb, a slick spot, and a black hole, which we should cover now. The slick spots we've already talked about, which help you move an additional spot. These black holes are different spots that will happen for different reasons, such as the card that triggered it. And if you ever end your movement in one of these spots, you also die. Again, if you're the last one standing, you win the game, but you are able to respawn if you die and there are still other players in the game. Now, these cracks that you see here, if a player is ever in that spot and then moves out of it, it then creates a black hole. Holes can be a really great way to trap a player because there's still some playable amount of space where you're able to move to, but if you move into an area where someone puts a hole and then you're not able to move out, that can be a way that you can be stuck in a really tricky way. Now again, you are able to respawn, but if there's only one player left, you can't come back, and then they will be the best cartoon possible. Now with that, let's talk about anvils because I think that's one of my favorite mechanics that happens. With the anvils, they are going to be these X spots here, and if a player ever ends their turn in that spot at the end of the aftermath phase, an anvil will fall onto them. So an anvil will replace that character, they die, and then again they have that opportunity to respawn if there are still multiple players left on the board, but the anvil is now left as a thingamajig on the board that can be moved around from different things that force movement. However, one on the edge like this would fall off when a new tile is played to collapse the board. Once all players have resolved all three of their actions, then it will move on to the aftermath phase. During the aftermath phase, this is when the game is going to come back at you and hit you with a lot of different things. The first thing to trigger would be fans. We don't have any fans on the current board that I'm showing you, but a fan would move a player either forward or backward depending on where they are in the direction of the fan. So for example, if there was a fan here, then if you were here, you would move toward the fan or move away from it, but if you ever move onto the fan spot, you also immediately die, and you can just think about what's happening with that. Then after that, all of the bombs would trigger, and if a bomb is within one of anything, it will then push everything 2 spaces away. So this bomb one is, and it would then move Slappy 2 spaces away, putting him within range 1 of bomb 2, meaning that bomb 2 wouldn't have gone off, but it now will, moving him 1 to this way, and he would then stop there. Now that would have been the case, but there's actually the portal here, which is even more tricky. So this bomb would stay here. This bomb would have gone off, moving him 1, popping him through this portal, and ending him here next to the anvil on the edge of the board. Now after that, you're going to do the crush spots, which are any of the X's that would gain you an anvil and kill your character. And then you're going to shrink the map. So looking here, the only character that is not all the way on the edge of the map currently is Dr. Piddles. So you would then take a piece, shrink the map, all 3 of these characters would be killed, and the player with Dr. Piddles would actually win the game because of this. Due to these overlay tiles that you use to shrink the map, the game is actually limited by a number of rounds because the map is going to get smaller and smaller, forcing players to only have a certain number of spaces and really being able to push other characters off of the board. Whenever you need to move, if a character is in front of you, you push them, and that's a way that you could really push people off of the board, but you're also going to have special things working for you, such as Slappy's gimmick here, which he does pick a friend at the beginning of the game, he gives them his token, and his goal is to push your friend. But then once he does so, the reward is that the push moves the friend 2 additional spaces, meaning that it would push that friend 3 spaces forward. Now, as the map shrinks smaller and smaller, obviously that becomes more important because there are fewer spaces for you to push them across. Overall, Unscrewed is going to play very quickly with players moving around the board, trying to plan out what they want to do with the different directions that they want to move in, and hopefully not move into anything bad, but the improv deck is really going to interact with different characters, and you're going to absolutely need your quirks once you learn a bit of the game to be able to stay in and fight in this free-for-all. Now, I've gone over some of the improv cards for the attacks, but I just want to go over the other instant cards that can happen because some of them are instants that will happen. For example, Nuclear Meltdown. Put the core map cover in the center of the map, Players this would kill may move one space first, and the map doesn't shrink this round. That would mean that you would then instead take this spot, put it in the center, and you would use this to make the map smaller from the inside instead of the outside, which is a really interesting way to change the pace of play of the game. Another one that is possible that could happen is unlikely friends. Place yourself in a space adjacent to another player. So this is an action card that can happen that isn't an attack, but is something that is just changing what is happening throughout the game. Now players are going to desperately be trying to choose which quirks work best, which directions to be moving in, and trying to adjust to the different things that are happening, because that's really the best thing that you can do, is not try to stick to a specific plan, but adjust to the different things that are happening around you and just try to knock out whoever is closest or whatever works best for you. Now this has been a preview of Unscrewed by me and Hyena Games. As I said, you can check out their link down below. This is a prototype copy. They're an upcoming Kickstarter, but I'm sure they would appreciate you checking out their page and their support. I am Professor Meg, and thank you all for watching the Board Game Code channel. I will see you next time. Bye!